Okay, and this video is functionally the anatomy of a successful event game. First thing you know is what is an event game? Most people are going to think of con games right off the top of their head, but a convention game is functionally a one-shot deal 9 times out of 10, or it's something that's being hosted by one of the organizations out there. An event game is usually a continuation of a chronicle storyline that is hitting a major crescendo. It might be a finale, it might be a critical event, or it could just be the launch of a huge story. I run an annual event, so most of the time this is going to be some kind of finale because we've got things that have been working all year. Once you understand what the event is, you have to understand what the important factors are in it. The first one is going to be location. Location, location, location. Where are you holding your event game? There's 2 ways to do it, really. I mean, an event game tends to be multiple days. So you could have a location where you start gaming at a certain time and you go to a certain point and then everybody goes to their own accommodations, whether that be tents or nearby hotels or friends' houses, whatever it may be. The other way is what we do is we go out to a secluded area and we take over a cabin site. It could be tent sites, it could be cabins, whatever it may be. For us, it's cabins. And it's secluded enough so that the role playing is not going to inhibit the muggles, and it's got adequate facilities so that we're not going to have to leave for anything. It's got its own bathrooms, it's got its own kitchen, so we bring everything with us, which leads into the next step, which is logistics. You need to know how much you're charging in pre-registration and then in final registration. This should be reflected by your costs. How much is it going to cost for you to rent the site? How much is it going to cost for food and drink if you're feeding, and providing drinks for your guests? How much do the supplies that you're going to need to run the game cost? Therefore, like pens, pencils, index cards for them to write on, printed item cards, printed sheets, whatever it may be. So therefore, a printer cartridge. In our case, we use beads to represent tempers, so we have to make sure we have enough of those. Some games will actually give out lanyards with IDs for the characters. This all needs to be factored in, and so you'll have a rough idea of what you need to charge people. What's your minimum that you need to charge for pre-registration, what's your minimum you need to charge for the final registration, and therefore you hopefully will get enough people in your pre-registration to cover the main cost you need to pay. So you'll be able to buy your food ahead of time, be able to buy your utensils and paper plates, whatever you're feeding people on. You need to be able to buy all that stuff and be ready. Then you bring it to your game, or you bring it to this event. You get it there early, and you get everything set up so that you're ready to roll when your game launches. Then it becomes immersive. When I say immersive, from the time people check in, they should be pretty much in character the majority of the time until the very end, when it's checkout time, which for us tends to be 2 days later. You need to designate out of character areas. The bathroom should always be out of character. And usually, if the weather's not inclement, we will make the food hall out of character so that the cooks don't get disturbed, or it's a good place for the storytellers to regroup and redeploy. You should also have a couple other places, so if people need to make phone calls, they can go do so. If they want to have an out-of-character discussion that has nothing to do with game, they can go over there and do so, and nobody's going to think that they're talking about that in-game, and so on. Okay. After your logistics, you need to have your story. Now, you should have some kind of culmination coming in, so you should have already laid the groundwork for the story. My belief is that you can't have one storyline. If you only have one storyline, you're going to crash and burn. You should have multiple. You should have 4 or 5 stories. Even if there's one major one, there should be some minor stories being run. That's why you need to have proper staff. I've been running an event game now for 4 years. We're in our 4th annual event game. We've also had a couple of mini events in the time being in the off season. and we've been very, very successful. We were very successful. We were part of the TGN, the Gru Nation, and we are still successful even being apart from them. And we have not caved in and joined anything like One World by Night or Mind's Eye Society. We are an independent troop. We do have some affiliations with other troops, but it doesn't matter. We're running our game, and we've put an open invite. Your stories, you should have a rough schedule. You need to have it categorized by Tier 1. Tier 1 is the stories and scenes that have to be run. Then you should have your Tier 2, things that you want to run, that you're going to try to fit in as you can. Tier 3, these are the extra things that you're going to have. You'd like to run them, but if they get scrapped, it's no big deal, and they don't affect the flow of the main story. You also got to take into account player stories. Players are going to start stories, and it's going to eat up some of your narrators. You just got to be prepared for it. This is why at all times I try to have at least one floater person out there. Somebody who's really got nothing to do for like the next hour, so that players can snag them as they need them. With this, you kind of have to know, you should know your core players. You might not know all your visitors, but you should know your core players, because if you need to push a storyline because something went wrong, you know who to go to. You know who to drop the hint on, because you know how people are going to react. A good storytelling staff knows enough about their key players that they know who they need to go to get something done, and get it done in a way where it doesn't look like the staff is forcing it, but it's the player's idea. Then there's just a few factors to things. Number one, know your stories if you're running them. Know your rules. Be willing to look up rules. Don't argue with the players. If a player starts to argue, shut them down. Make a decree, and if they continue, then you got to take action, because now they're interfering with the flow for everybody else. Everybody's there to have fun and game. They're not there to listen to one person bitch. So you should have all of your mechanics, all of your systems, all of your rules. Everything should be accessible and ready to go. There should also be some kind of reward for the people who are there, whether it's more experience points, bigger renown totals, or even if it might be a little prize you give to the best role player, maybe the best of each tribe. That makes it memorable. That makes people love it. That makes them want to come back. You also can't be inflexible. Somebody once said that the best laid plans in war don't survive contact with the enemy. It's kind of true as a storytelling staff. Your best laid stories aren't going to survive contact with the players. They're going to change things. So you have to have a very malleable temperament when it comes to the storylines. You got to sit there and realize that if you're planning to go from point A to point D by way of B and C, and the players just decide they're going way off base, you got to go, okay, we're going over to G. Is there any way to get it back to where it's going to end at D, or are we going in a totally different direction? You got to be ready to change, to adapt to what they're doing. It makes the players happy, and a lot of times it makes for more interesting storylines. So if you can put together a good location, you can put together good logistics, you can put together a good staff that is on the right page, you can put together a good story, in the end, the players are going to do the rest, and you're going to have a good time. You might not get a lot of sleep as staff, but you're going to have a good time, and everybody should have a good time there. And that's how you make a successful event game. And if you do so, they're going to want to do it again, and more people are going to want to do it, and you're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We had a huge first event game. We left TGN. Our event game numbers went down. We still had a great event, and our numbers have been gradually increasing every year since then. And I'm sure that, you know, how many ever people we have this year is going to be more next year. Why? Because we're running a successful event game. Hopefully this has helped anybody who's actually considering running one of their own. The only other thing I can say that I haven't mentioned, because I'm not sure where to mention, is marketing. When you're leading into your event game, post it on any, you know, Werewolf LARP groups you know. Post it to any gamers you know. Post it to everybody. Talk to them. You know, sell the game to them, and you'll get more people, and it'll make it richer and fuller. Okay, that's it for now, I guess, guys. So enjoy, and hopefully this helped.